Water damage, yeah, it's pretty much every homeowner's worst nightmare, right? It can strike so fast and just leave total chaos behind. But here's the thing, understanding what happens next and why getting a pro is so critical can literally change everything. So, okay, let's break it all down and pull back the curtain on the whole process from that first moment of panic all the way to a full recovery.
So picture this. It's the middle of the night. You hear a weird sound, you stumble into the kitchen, and oh no, there's an inch of water on the floor and it's spreading. The panic is real. It's a shocking moment for sure, but what you do in these first few hours is absolutely crucial. So where does a disaster like this even come from?
Well, a lot of the time, the culprit is hiding right there inside your walls. Old pipes, a corroded drain line, or even a tiny little pinhole leak that finally gives way, and bam! It can dump hundreds of gallons of water into your house before you even have a chance to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, there are the everyday machines we totally depend on. A washing machine hose splits, a dishwasher line just cracks, or maybe your water heater, which, only lasts about 8 to 12 years, decides today's the day it's going to retire and dumps its entire 40 or 50-gallon tank all over your floors.
Of course, sometimes the trouble comes from the outside world. A huge summer thunderstorm rolls through, maybe you've got some damaged shingles, and all of a sudden water is just pouring into your attic. It soaks the insulation, and next thing you know, drip, 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 right through your living room ceiling.
So, the water's here. It wasn't invited, but it showed up anyway. But listen, that initial flood, that's just the opening act. The real problem, the thing you have to worry about, is that you are now in a race against the clock. Because with water damage, things get worse with every single hour that ticks by.
Okay, if there's one thing you take away from this, it's this number. You have got to remember this. In a warm, damp space, mold can start to grow and colonize in just 24 to 48 hours. That's how fast a simple water issue turns into a huge, nasty, and much more complicated mold problem if you don't act immediately.
Depending on where you live and the age of your house, your home might be more vulnerable. For instance, if you've got that heavy clay soil, water has nowhere to go, it just pools right up against your foundation. Clogged gutters do the exact same thing. You combine that with some older plumbing, and you've basically got a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so you've got a huge problem, you've made the call, and help is on the way. But what are they actually going to do when they get there? It's really important to understand two words you're going to hear a lot: mitigation and restoration. And trust me, they are not the same thing.
Here's the easiest way to think about it. Mitigation is the emergency first aid. It's stopping the bleeding. The technicians show up, they suck out all the standing water, and they set up a ton of drying equipment. Restoration, well, that's the full recovery. That's the whole process of rebuilding and repairing everything to get your home looking exactly like it did before the flood.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Just throw some hands in there, open the windows, it'll be fine, right? Well, not quite. Professional structural drying is a genuine science. It's a really precise, calculated process that all starts with understanding the kind of water you're dealing with.
So, the first thing the pros do is classify the water. Category 1 is clean water. Think of it coming from a broken supply pipe. Category 2 is gray water, which is a little bit contaminated, like from an overflowing washing machine. And then you have Category 3, black water. This is the really nasty stuff like sewage or flood water. And that classification changes everything about the cleanup plan.
To tackle this, they come armed with some pretty cool tech. They use thermal imaging cameras that can literally see hidden pockets of moisture behind your walls. They have these specialized meters to get super precise moisture readings, and they're not just guessing where to put the fans. They're using something called psychrometrics. It's basically the physics of how air dries things to figure out the perfect amount of equipment for your space.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. This is not guesswork. Professionals don't just set it and forget it. They are there every single day, taking readings, tracking the progress, and adjusting the equipment until every last bit of wood, drywall, and flooring is verifiably, scientifically dry.
All right, so we get the science behind it. But what does this whole journey actually look like for you, the homeowner who's watching all this happen? Let's walk through the entire path, from that first frantic phone call all the way to the final handshake.
It all kicks off with that emergency call. A crew shows up fast, they whip out their meters and cameras, and they map out the extent of the damage. Then they get to work on extracting the water and setting up the drying equipment we just talked about. And only when everything is completely bone dry does the reconstruction team take over to handle the new drywall, the flooring, the paint, and make it look like nothing ever happened. Now, this is super important. You have to have realistic expectations about the timeline. A standard drawing job usually takes about 3 to 5 days, but some materials, like hardwood floors or concrete, are way harder to dry out. They need special techniques and can take 10 days or even more. And trust me, rushing this step is what causes all those awful long-term problems.
And now for everyone's favorite part, just kidding, the insurance claim. This is where having a professional company in your corner is an absolute game changer. Why? Because they speak the language of insurance adjusters. They provide all the detailed photos, the moisture readings, the equipment logs, everything the insurance company needs to see, which helps avoid disputes and just get your claim approved faster.
Okay, we've walked through the whole chaotic journey, the crisis, the science, and the recovery. So, what's the bottom line here? And maybe more importantly, what can you actually do right now to try and avoid this whole mess in the first place?
You know, a little bit of prevention goes a long, long way. So take a couple of minutes and just look at the supply hoses on your washer. Find out how old your water heater is. And simple stuff like keeping your gutters clean can make a huge difference in keeping water away from your foundation. It's easy stuff that can save you a world of hurt.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. Yes, professional restoration has a cost, but you should think of it as an investment in doing the job right. Trying to DIY it might feel like you're saving money, but when you inevitably miss some hidden moisture, you're setting yourself up for structural rot and mold, which are vastly more expensive to fix down the road.
And that really brings us to our final thought. After seeing this whole process, the real question isn't just if a water emergency could happen to you, but what's your plan for when it does? Because simply knowing who to call and what to expect, that is the first and most powerful step you can take to protect your home.